Eers and Beers, episode 54. What's on tap? A little state of the program 2022 for basketball. Maybe the Bob Huggins episode, if you will. And more transfer turmoil strikes Mountaineer Nation once again. But before we get into all of that, this is Eers and Beers, the podcast. I'm Wesley Euler. He's Adam Crowley. What's up, Mr. Crowley? And what are we drinking?
Drinking a sparkling lime water from Trader Joe's as I try to recover from what has been a wifeless and childless weekend. How about you?
Yeah, you spent a lot of time down at our spot Archie's, didn't you? Huh? I mean,
Yeah,
all day Saturday, just taking in the hoops, eating some wings at the finest Mountaineer establishment in Pittsburgh, baby.
that is what happened, and I won a lot of money gambling.
There
So
you go. There you
terrific
go.
weekend. Missed my kid, but
But
hey,
had some fun in the absence.
yeah, I mean, if your kid's not around, I've been told you're supposed to gamble and drink. I'm a
And that
great
you
man.
did. And that you did at Archie's on the South Side. No better place to be, if you ask me. Yeah, it's early Sunday morning as Adam and I record this one. So I got an espresso here.
Oh,
Crow man.
like you need that. I mean, you learn.
Are you much of an Nespresso guy? I recently just got into this game of all these different Nespresso pods that my wife buys. It's pretty delicious. It packs a punch, I tell you.
I'm sure it does. I'm more of your standard Americano, little drip skis,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I dig it. I mean, look at you. You're very chic, I tell you, Mr.
I'm
Adam Crowley.
I'm effervescent with my energy this morning, as always.
Yeah, I can tell you're feeling it. I'm feeling it in a different way. I'm heading down to PPG Paints Arena here in a couple hours.
That's right.
Go watch some of these games. Illinois, Houston, Ohio State, Nova. Should be fun. What was not fun was the end of the Mountaineers 2021-2022 basketball campaign. You know, and we've had some time now. Sit back, think about this, digest this, if you will. You know, maybe not knee-jerk in the moment is maybe the way to put this. You know, it wasn't pretty to start the season, but you won 13 of your first 15 games. You know, it's always fun to beat up on Pitt, even though their program is a shell of what they used to be. You had a really fun, nostalgic win against UConn, even though they were missing some important pieces in that game. You know, it felt like this was going to be a fun year. I think particularly after the UAB win, right, where they were just falling apart at the free throw line, and they still found a way to win that game against a good UAB team that ended up winning their conference, and you felt like, all right, we got to where we needed to be. Right, 13-2 heading into conference play. We're going to be just fine. You know, we're not going to be world beaters. We're not going to be a Final Four team, but we're going to be just fine. We're going to make the tournament. We'll have some big wins. And, man, it felt like it was going to be a fun year, and it clearly was not. You lose 14 of your last 16. You finish with a losing record. You don't play any postseason basketball, and that's what I keep coming back to, man. I know I mentioned this on one of our podcasts a couple weeks ago. Like, I know this team wasn't great. I just said it. Like, I don't think any of us had illusions of a Final Four, a Big 12 championship, or anything like that. But they aren't bad enough that they should have lost 14 out of 16 down the stretch. They weren't bad enough that they should have only won 4 Big 12 conference games in what we all know is a loaded tournament. Every Big 12 team that made March Madness won their first round game. I mean, 6-0. It's a really good conference this year, but it shouldn't have been that bad. You shouldn't go the entire conference season without winning a road game. And I just that's what I keep coming back to. I don't know how much of all of that I want to put at the feet of Bob Huggins, but he's certainly, you know, he's the head coach. It's his program. He has a lot of autonomy in that program. And I think, you know, we're all rightfully disappointed, him included, obviously, too, with how this all shook out in 2022.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think I think you covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I really painted in broad brushes there to start.
No, that's
start
okay.
The episode.
That's okay. I am willing to give Bob Huggins a pass, but you need to see how things move from here. Like, I was talking with a Pitt fan yesterday who is an Arduzzi guy, and I've never been an Arduzzi guy. And what I told him was, if I were you, I'd wait to see if this guy can win without Kenny Pickett. I mean,
Yep.
With Bob Huggins, we've seen this before. I want to see now, though, if he can do it in the transfer portal era after a bad season. And now you know the way you win in today's college basketball. And so for me, Pat Narduzzi, it's a prove it. Now, Bob Huggins is infinitely more accomplished at what he's done
Right,
than
right.
Pat Narduzzi. But to me, it's still a prove it. Can you do it now? I mean, eventually, Chuck Noll ran out of steam. Eventually, the game starts to pass you by no matter who you are.
Bob Knight, it wasn't pretty at the end of his tenure.
Right. I mean, because you know how you've done it. And Bob has changed stylistically the way he's gone about things from what playing the 1-3-1 whenever he got here, and then you're playing the press, all the different things he's tried to do when goes 4 out last year because of circumstance. That's all well and good. Bob's as good of an adjuster really as there is in game adjustments, season to season adjustments in terms of the philosophy, but his overall philosophy of team building is what we're going to have to see change here. As for like Jalen Bridges and Isaiah Cottrell leaving,
Oh,
I don't care. I really don't. I don't know that we talked about this yet. I don't care. These guys ain't one jack. They're good, promising players, but if you have to restart from this, if you have to be a phoenix born again from the ashes, oh, phlegm.
oh.
Excuse me there. If you're a phoenix born again from the ashes, you might as well be a big freaking pile of ashes. Burn the whole thing down and start over. I'm okay with it. God bless you, JB. God bless you, Isaiah Cottrell. Good luck. Take care. But I'm okay with it. You got to move on. You got to start over anyway. I don't know if they're part of the solution.
Yeah, I'm. It's hard to argue that. This is very easy to say now as we sit here in March and the news has come out. You and I were told back in early February, strong chance that Jalen Bridges enters the portal. And again, that's easy for me to say now. That we didn't go public with any of that. We didn't tweet that. We didn't say that here on the podcast. It's easy for me to say now, but you and I were told a little over a month ago, hey, there's a lot of people around the program who don't think JB is going to be back for a lot of different reasons. His usage this season, maybe some stuff with Bob Huggins and some expectations there, and I think certainly it's pretty clear that he's fed up with the fan base. No matter how you feel about that, if you think leave these guys alone, don't tweet them, don't do any of that stuff. If you think, hey, who cares? They're making money now. They're adults. They're allowed to transfer. They're allowed to do all that. Wherever you're at on that. If you think, hey, JB, get tougher skin. If you think, hey, WVU fans, some of that stuff was gross that they were doing. Wherever you're at, I think it's pretty clear that he was bothered by the fan base. I think we can all at least agree on that. And again, that's a different conversation. There is obviously examples of WVU fans going too far with that, but there's also some grass isn't greener on the other side there. Go look at Kentucky's players' mentions when they lost to St. Peter's in the first round, right? Go look at Tennessee football or Penn State football players' mentions when they lose a game that they shouldn't. It's not an excuse, it's reality. It happens everywhere, but
Yeah, it
it's
definitely
still
does.
bad from WVU. And let's go there. Like the idea that the fan base, there's toxicity of WVU fans, right? Now look at me, System of a Down there, a little toxicity. And that this is driving players away and all this stuff. Like I agree that there's a bunch of BS that happens to these guys, particularly when you have a season that falls apart like this one did again, where you lose 14 out of 16 games at the end. Like DMing Jalen Bridges' sorry,
Whoa.
singular, all right? DMing
Atta
JB's
boy, JB.
girlfriend, like that's just a crock, man. Like I don't care what the scenario is, that should never happen. But that's where I'm at. Like if you think this only happens in Morgantown at WVU, you're full of it. Go
Yeah.
anywhere else and lose 14 out of 16 games and see how the fans react on social media, but ignore the fact that you're still practically selling out the Coliseum for every single game. You know, it's just to
If it's a
me.
passionate fan base, you're going to deal with this anywhere. You just are. It sucks,
Yes,
but
it
that's just
sucks. It absolutely sucks. That's not what I'm excusing. But I mean, dude, Nick Saban has ripped into Alabama fans about how they treat their players on social media before. And all they do is win. Like it's a cesspool. It doesn't change in a different state or a different time zone or a different conference. And again, that doesn't excuse it. Quit saying vulgar shit to teenagers and guys in their young 20s that you would never say to their face. Quit DMing their girlfriends. That's BS. But I also think it's BS that they expect that to change if they go somewhere else.
yeah. like Emmett Matthews probably isn't taking as much from Washington fans because I'm not sure that they have any for basketball or that they give a rat's ass. But apart from that, wherever you go that is a passionate fan base, there's going to be people who get overly emotional and they go on social media and they're going to be
Yeah,
dicks and it sucks. And we don't do that because we're
because we're
not
adults.
jackasses, right? But it's going to happen everywhere in any fan base. There's going to be small factions of people that are going to do stuff like this, and it's not an excuse. It's really
No, it's
not.
not. It's just
But
reality.
but if you're going to transfer because of the fans and you're going to wind up landing at another big program, you know, you are going to find that it's not any different. It's just not. It sucks, but
No,
it's
it
true.
does. And I just part of what bothers me too is we've seen this from football and we've seen this from basketball. Guys who leave the program. Now, I should say, like you mentioned Emmett Matthews. Emmett Matthews raves about WVU and Morgantown and the fan base on Twitter. Like he loves Mountaineer Nation still. But there's a lot of Jordan McCabe, same way. But there's a lot of guys that have left the programs in football and basketball and suddenly throw a lot of shade around, do a lot of subtweeting if you're familiar with that. Like, Jalen Bridges was tweeting about happiness is greater than NIL money, and he was posting the Michael Jordan laughing gif as Teddy Allen was dropping 37 points or whatever it was on UConn's head. Like Parker Moore and Winston Wright and Tyke Smith, some of these guys that have left the program that can't stop tweeting about the program. Like that to me is annoying. Like, say what you mean, spill the beans, or be gone. You and I have said this a million times. If a player wants to leave for a better situation, for a different situation, whatever it may be, you and I we've got no problem with that. But it's like the attention-seeking subtweets are getting old to me, and I think when you've got a fan base that has just seen the transfer portal just attack your football and basketball programs, when you've had a losing year in both football and basketball, all this stuff creates kind of a cauldron, kind of a melting pot where people can go over the edge and people can say some things that, emotionally charged that they shouldn't in the moment. But again, I'm not placing blame, but I don't think that helps. Like Parker Moore's on Twitter tweeting about Nick Troy Fortune. Hey, you're finally free. Like, free of what? Like, spill
I'm
the
sorry
beans.
you got beat out by a better tackle, Parker.
Right, exactly. Like, spill the beans or be gone, or just stay at, like you're at East Carolina now. I wish you all the best, but leave us alone. Like, quit. Like, if you've got a problem with the program, speak it, or just STFU. Like, and I
And
understand
he
why that
wound up.
bothers
Where did he wind up?
East Carolina. Yeah, not a Power 5 school last time I checked.
I mean,
That's just annoying, and I think that
freedom,
all that
great, enjoy it.
freedom. That
Mel Gibson.
Braveheart over here. Yeah, Mel Gibson. William Wallace. I think that too. When you've got a disgruntled fan base, when you've had the tough year that we've had, that type of stuff just fans the flames.
I just did it. Me, well-adjusted Adam Crowley. I just took a shot at poor young Parker Moore for just doing what he wants to do. But you're right. Like in all their story, it sounds like my washing machine is. Do you hear that? I feel like my washing machine's off its axis and spinning out of control in the next room. You
Oh
hearing that?
yeah, wow, I can't hear that.
The hell's going on over there? I hope everyone's okay. No one else is here. Where was I? Dear God. I might
Toxicity
need
of
to.
WVU fans
Should
fighting
I go?
back on
Should I
Twitter.
go stop that? Do you hear that?
Like when you're
I'll be
not
right back.
talking, I can barely
Give me
hear.
10 seconds.
I'll,
I'll be right back.
I'll reset the podcast here. All right, this is Ears and Beers episode 54. All right, he's Adam Crowley. I'm Wesley Euler. A reminder: we're having our spring game tailgate on April 23rd. How about that? And I've finalized some merchandise. We got some hats, we got some t-shirts, we got some koozies, all that good stuff. So April 23rd, blue lot for the spring game if you're going to be in Morgantown. I'm going to try and work some baseball as well too. We will be at the WVU Pit backyard baseball brawl in Pittsburgh at PNC Park in April as well too. So if you're in the area here in Western Pennsylvania where Adam and I live, if you're obviously in West Virginia going to the spring game or coming up here to PNC Park, make sure you holler at us. But yeah, that's kind of the plan for now for April 23rd, and he is back. Look at that. What a transition.
What the hell? That's very odd. spin cycle. Thing was going out of control. For a second, I thought my cat was in there. Thank God that didn't happen.
I just, man, and I think you know what? While we're going through all this, why not get it out there? It seems to me that they're just something was going on with the defensive backs inside the football program. I don't know how much of that still stems from a die and some of the issues that have been widely reported and discussed that were there with that kind of position group doing their own thing and having some renegade personalities in there, if you will. But I just, man, Adam, this is the point where I'm at. And again, I don't want to excuse fan behavior, but I that's just how fans are. They're emotional. They're financially and emotionally invested a lot of times. I just, dude, like I'm Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Like, say what again? Like, say transfer portal again. Like, it's got to stop. And I think we need to add some reinforcements as well too. I mean,
JT Daniels.
JT Daniels. Yeah.
JT
How about for
Daniels.
basketball, huh? I mean, how about a big that can score inside and play a little defense? Huh?
Yeah, they're West Virginia's been in on a couple of these transfers so far, which is I think refreshing because that's what they need to do. You got to load up, make the tournament next year, baby. But it's so hard because losing begets losing and winning begets winning. It's tough to stop that cycle, especially today
Yeah.
when you're 6-7 in football and things haven't been sexy for a couple of years here. You went 6-4 the year before, you went 5-7 the year before that. It's a lot of milk toast and
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
lot of tangible progress in terms of the win-loss record. And I say that despite the fact that they really took off in the second half of the season, going 4-2 down the
Four
stretch.
and two
But
down the stretch. Yep.
you will forget about the bowl game. You just it's hard for me to see how it stops until like you get a JT Daniels. If he comes in, the circumstances surrounding his transfer, the schools he's picking from, if you got an opportunity to get that guy who's got experience and maybe you can win 8 games this year, I think it changes things. But if
Absolutely.
you don't, then it's okay. Now we're starting a freshman quarterback. And even if you've got things buttoned up on the offensive defensive line, it's still a freshman and you're still going to make mistakes and it's going to be hard. And maybe you're 5-7 or 6-6 again, and you're going to have more transfers. You've got to put a stop to it. And that's the same thing with Huggins. Don't let this thing spiral out of control. It's
Yep.
one bad season. You were a 3 seed last year. You were going to make the tournament the year before that. You beat a top 5 Baylor team at the end of the year. Can you get back to the tournament next year? Because if you can't, then all of a sudden you're the program that hasn't gone to the tournament for 2 years, 3 out of 4 years, really, when you think about it, or 3 out of 5 you haven't gone. Um,
Not great.
you're going to have people leaving and you're not going to have people committing at that point because the mystique of the 800 Bob Huggins wins or 900 Bob Huggins wins ain't there whenever you're not winning ball games. So put an end to it. Transfer portal, make the necessary changes, win, baby.
Let me too, as we start to wrap this up. I looked at this before we started here. Bob Huggins, Big 12 record,
I don't want to hear it.
90-90. Exactly 500. And I think when you consider first 2 years were rough, adjusting to a new conference, new style of play, travel, all the things that came with leaving Big East basketball into the Big 12. First 2 years were a little rough. Then there was a lot of solid years. And then, as you mentioned, 2 of the last 3 seasons haven't been the greatest. Last year was you were a 3 seed in the tournament. You clearly had a good season. But 90-90 in the Big 12. And I think when you look at it from a bird's eye view, you would want those numbers to be better. I do believe, right, Bob Huggins is the third highest paid coach in the conference behind Bill Self and Drew Scott, I believe. You want some return on that investment more than just 500 basketball. But let me ask you this. Here's where I'm going with this. We talked about the clearing house and the resetting and not letting this spiral. Does it feel to you like this is the beginning of the end, or that this is the phoenix rising from the ashes? Like, which is more likely? When you look around at the guys that Bob Huggins recruited to WVU, Teddy Allen and Oscar Sheboy and Deuce McBride and Derek and a lot of these what if situations, right? Do you take any solace in that? Like proof that he can still spot talent. He just maybe needs to evolve with some man management, or do you kind of look at it in the opposite way, that some of these guys, have had more success elsewhere, that um that this is a sign that maybe just the game has changed, and it's very hard to change when you're that age and you've had all the success that Bob Huggins has had.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't. I think next year's going to tell us a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I know that's a non-answer sort of, but I really think that that's the case. How does he adjust? How do they go about their accruing of talent? And if they can hit the transfer portal in a more successful way than they did this year, and guys with a couple of years left too, like it was frustrating because you had Curry down the stretch start playing really good basketball for you. He figures out the Big 12. He knows it's a grind. He learns how to do it, and then he's gone. And that kind of thing stinks. So can you get into the transfer portal, get a couple of impact guys, maybe one or two guys with some term, to borrow a
Some
professional
term.
sports
I like that.
phrase. That's what you got to do, and see if you can stop the bleeding. And if you can't do it, and if you're striking out on portal guys, if you have another bad season, then I'm willing to have the conversation. But I
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
think Bob Huggins deserves to get a chance to figure it out and fix it, because he's fixed it a couple times here already.
I think that's well said by you. You look at this. Look around right now in March Madness. Right, Providence, four of their best
You
players
guys from
transfer.
Providence,
You guys from Providence, four of their best.
departed.
Departed. Listen. We've said this before, but it's true. If you want a movie reference from Adam Crowley, it's got to be a Marvel movie or The Departed. Um, Providence four into the Sweet 16. Right. I mean, four of their starters are transfer portal guys. Iowa State, one of the worst teams in college basketball last season, whole bunch of transfer portal guys. Texas Tech, whole bunch of transfer portal guys. So you can turn it around very quickly. And I think, particularly you look at some of these programs that have done so, they are on par or lower, I think, than a program status of WVU. Like Providence has the history, but Providence hasn't been good in a long time. If they can turn it around and get these transfer portal guys and get to a Sweet 16 like that, so can WVU and Bob Huggins, in theory. And I'm with you. I think you've got to give him the chance to do that. Oh, it's gonna be interesting because you will have a lot of turnover. Obviously, with JB and Isaiah into the portal, that opens up even more spots. Um, let's see where this all goes. We got a couple tweets here to round out the episode, Mr. Crowley, if that's all right with you.
Yeesh.
Eers and Beers on Twitter is where you find the podcast. Mario tweets us and says, what's the plan going forward for Shane Lyons? Huggins can't keep holding this school hostage. I'm sick and tired of hearing alumni and fans say that Huggins can stay as long as he wants. I will say this, Mario. Shane Lyons isn't going to let anybody hold any program hostage. Okay? We've shared on the podcast before how there was some back and forth between Neil Brown and Shane Lyons about money around Graham Harrell, and Shane made Neil Brown leave some concessions in terms of his contract to balance out the money to get Graham Harrell to Morgantown. We've seen Shane Lyons. I don't know when I say we've seen, and this is another one of those behind the scenes thing. There's been some power struggles with some, what should we call them, other sports coaches as well too, that have had a lot of success in Morgantown, who have wanted bigger contracts and threatened to look elsewhere, where Shane Lyons has put his foot down and said, listen, you're adequately compensated. This is what we've got. This is the reality, particularly coming off the back of the pandemic. So we've seen it with Neil Brown, we've seen it with other coaches, and yes, Bob Huggins stands atop of that mountain. He's a West Virginia guy who has brought our basketball program all kinds of success. Continue to build upon what John Beilein started here before he got here. But that's where I would say you should be confident in all this. Whether you love Shane Lyons or dislike Shane Lyons, he's not going to let anybody hold any program hostage. He's not going to let anybody be bigger than the program, bigger than the university. And I think that's safe to say, even about someone as iconic and accomplished as Bob Huggins.
Yeah, I think Huggins, if he has another bad season, and I think it would be something along the lines of he would retire and then he would be a basketball coach emeritus or whatever, right? He'd probably still be involved in some way, fundraising, probably most
Yes.
likely.
Yes.
And that would probably be that. I think everything you said is absolutely true.
Noah tweets us and says, all due respect to Cottrell, he was just downright terrible for the vast majority of the season. Time to flip this thing around with guys that can actually score. I do agree with you that Cottrell was not good for the majority of the season. I do think, though, that they were kind of trying to do, at a lot of times, the square peg into a round hole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Trying to have him play the 5 was just never going to work out. And so
And he's still coming off a massive
I hope it
injury.
works out for him. You know, you and I talked about this on the podcast throughout the season. It was pretty clear. Like, we don't have to sugarcoat this. We don't have to deny this. WVU's best 5 on the court didn't involve Isaiah Cottrell as part of that 5. But I think I can say that and say they weren't using him in the best way possible, and I could see him. I don't think he's going to go and turn into Oscar Tshiebwe, and average like 30 and 30 a game and be National Player of the Year. But I think if used a little differently, if he has the ability to play with a true number 5 in that 4 role, I think he'll be fine.
John Flowers tweeted the other day that he thinks Isaiah Cottrell is going to be a pro, and you can see where that you can see the talent.
Yeah,
you can see the talent, but they didn't, like you said, didn't utilize him the right way. And like I said before, what do you view on, kid? Like, it's okay. We can move on. You can have success, and West Virginia could still be better off finding a guy that maybe fits more what Bob Huggins wants to do.
Joshua tweets us and says, I'm to a point where I'm starting to give up on college sports. Pretty sure you guys talked about this on an earlier podcast. People becoming frustrated and disinterested. I feel like that shift is starting to occur for me personally. I get it. It's college football, college basketball, they always felt different, and that's starting to change. Conference realignment a decade ago had a huge hand in that, and now with just a lot of the ways the game is changing, transfer portal, NIL, more conference realignment with Texas and Oklahoma, and certainly we're not naive enough to think that that's over with. That's only going to continue. I understand that. I've said before, I'm going to be in Morgantown every football Saturday. I don't care if we play in the Big 12, the Big East, the Big 10, or the slapdick Little Sisters of the Poor conference. I'm going to be there because I love it. But it's certainly, you understand that shift, and you understand why you can be jaded by it for sure, because it's something that you've grown to love over decades, and now that thing is much different.
It's a lot easier on March 20th when your team's not in the tournament to say that you're going to be done with college athletics.
That as well too.
If West Virginia's in the tournament right now, people aren't saying they're done with it. If it was the middle of football season, even if it's a bad season, still every Saturday they're there for you, and the pageantry and all that's there. People aren't saying it. I do think that there's validity to Joshua's tweet. I'm not going to.
He's not the only one. Absolutely.
Right. And I'm not saying that his feelings are invalid, but we'll see what happens come the fall and how many fans there are at Heinz Field wearing old gold and blue, because I'm betting there'll be thousands of them, because they'll remember what it was like to hate those guys the way that we used to hate those guys, and all the other stuff will sort of fall by the wayside at that point. We'll see.
We will see. All right, last one here. Our buddy Wumbo tweets us.
Trying to get a nap in. I mean,
he says, fellas, I'm sliding into the DMs again on this frustrating day to be a Mountaineer. He sent us this message on Wednesday when JB and Isaiah, both announced within a span of each other that they were entering the portal, and right off the back of Nick Choi Fortune as well, too. Sliding in the DMs again on this frustrating day to be a Mountaineer. I believe we have all been WVU fans for about the same period of time. I'm a 2014 grad. I turned 30 this summer. Is this the lowest point we've seen the programs in our lifetime? Given the new NCAA landscape and NIL and transfer portal, it seems we're almost becoming a farm team for better programs, kind of baseball style. I feel sick saying this, but almost akin to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Happy St. Patrick's Day, cracking a beer for you guys. Okay, so lowest point in the programs for me was still, and I'm a weirdo. Like I've said this on the podcast, but my initials are WVU. All right, so I was born and raised into this. Some of my earliest memories in life are being 5, 6, 7 years old, chucking the pigskin around in the blue lot with my grandpa. My family has had WVU season tickets forever. We used to do the RV thing and park right there at the blue lot for 2 days and throw down. This is certainly, I think, the lowest point. And Adam and I are 13 grads, 2013. I certainly think that this is the lowest point since we've graduated. I shared this last week on the podcast when we were in 6th grade, Adam. Football and basketball. That was the last time football and basketball had a losing season, 2001. You and I would have been in 6th grade at that time. But this is the hardest, I think, stretch to be a loyal, diehard Mountaineer since. I mean, probably since then. Probably in the last 20 years.
I mean, I'm fighting it. I would say when they went 4-8, lost to Iowa State. You were there for that one. Your last game as a student, right, against Iowa State.
Yeah, where I was shown on FS1 or wherever the game was. Let's just say I was very animated and very drunk and very angry, and the national TV cameras caught me. Yeah, that happened.
It was good. It was a good game though.
Yeah,
And
we lost in double overtime. Blew like a 20-some point lead. Yeah, great game.
Yeah, wonderful. That year was bad. I mean, you had Paul Millard throwing a pick against Texas in overtime. I mean, 2 overtime losses. That's probably 3 actually, because whatever. That whole that you go from going 5-0 to start 12 to then finishing 7-5 to then going 4-8 the next year,
losing to Kansas.
You've got the Aaron Harris transferring basketball situation that was sort of in and around the same time. I mean, you're gonna have moments like this when you're West Virginia. You are. You're not going to be able to cook in very few universities cook in both football and basketball at the same time. Anyway, so there've been down moments. I think. Well, I can't say I think things are going to turn around. We just need to wait and see. But it's not like they haven't turned around before after having lean moments.
And in terms of, like, feel like becoming a farm team for better programs, I get that. But that's kind of always been, in a sense, what you are as a mid-tier program. Now, I'm not naive. I know the transfer portal accelerates that process, magnifies that process, makes it a lot easier for Georgia and for LSU and for these teams to come in and pluck your guys away, and they don't have to sit out for a year and all those different things. But at the same time, we also, before NIL and before transfer portal, let's not also pretend or kid ourselves that we were on the same footing as Ohio State and Alabama and Clemson and Oklahoma and even Texas and LSU and, programs like Florida State and Miami who just have more money than us. Those schools have more money. The majority of them have better facilities. They have more history and tradition. They have more NFL or NBA alumni a lot, right? So we were always, again, a mid-tier program. We're not terrible. We're not Vanderbilt football, all right? We're not Pitt basketball, right? Mid-tier program in both football and basketball. We have the ability to have really good years where we win the conference, where we go to the Final Four, where we win the Orange Bowl and the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. But we also had the ability to have down years, have losing seasons. That was always the case. That's college sports in a nutshell. It is very Major League Baseball-like in that sense. It is very European soccer in that sense, where you're always going to have your Manchester Uniteds and your New York Yankees and these teams that are just operating on a different level with more money and more resources. It is obviously, though, now the transfer portal and the NIL has, I think, grown that gap even more and made it easier for those teams to prey on the mid-tier programs.
Yes.
But you've got to do some of that, too. You've got to go hit the G5 schools. You've got to go hit some of these programs that are lower than you on the food chain. You've got to kind of be ruthless in that regard. You can say it's time to play dirty if you want to, but the NCAA doesn't care. The NCAA clearly doesn't care. There's no regulations for this stuff. It's the Wild West, so, Billy Beane, right? Brad Pitt in Moneyball, when all his scouts are calling him crazy, and he puts his hands up and he says, adapt or die. That's what you've got to do if you're WVU or any other program. You got to adapt or die to this. It's that simple. Adapt or die with this, I should say.
I got nothing to add. JT
Daniels, September 1st, Heinz Field, backyard brawl against those stinking Pitt Panthers. This was fun, Crowley. This is a good one.
I need a nap.
Ears and Beers, episode 54. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Like us, watch us, subscribe to us on YouTube. And we'll see you April 23rd in the Blue Lot for the spring game. He's Adam Crowley. I'm Wesley Euler. Let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go drink some. Oh, God. Oh, the weekend.
Hold on. Remix, all right, remix.
Ah.
Rip, 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 rip. Let's go Mountaineers.
Let's go drink some beers.